All right, we are live. What are we looking at? We're looking at. I was at Indigo a couple days back and I came across this one book. So let's look into it. Give me. Oh, interesting stories from the book Chaos Kings. Chaos Kings: How Wall Street Traders Make Billions in the New Age of Crisis. Let's see. I think this would be a really cool way to just like learn about key takeaways from books. You can just ask Grok, you can just ask ChatGPT, keep diving into it, keep finding other interesting resources. Yeah, and Grok 4 seems to be really good now. So let's see what it tries to come up with. Anecdotes. Prioritize over YouTube videos or browsing. Okay. This would be also interesting. Like a lot of people, a lot of YouTube creators, they just create my summary of this book and kind of like a quick mini documentary from this book. And it would be interesting to just like look at their transcripts and see what can we also get from there. I think you're compiling stories. All right, let's see. Black swan traders, financiers who thrive on market chaos by betting on rare, catastrophic events. Drawing from reviews and summaries, here are some of the most compelling stories. Focusing on key figures like Nassim Taleb, okay, and Mark Spitznagel, their unconventional strategies and real-world crisis where they profited immensely. Nassim Taleb, okay. So he was, okay, early trading floor confrontation. Young derivatives trader, Taleb encountered the raw volatility of Wall Street firsthand when a hot-headed bit trader physically assaulted him, wrapping meaty fist around his neck during a heated dispute. This anecdote underscores the high-stakes, aggressive environment of trading pits and sets the stage for Taleb's lifelong obsession with unpredictability and risk. Wow. Taleb's experiences here inspired his philosophy that markets are far more fragile than they appear, leading him to co-found the fund Empirica with Spitznagel. I'm guessing they will have like a create an account. You can only read this much. All right, Chaos Kings. The quants in dark pools. The drama unfolds in lecture halls and conference rooms and on trading floors, which lend themselves naturally to drama. Meaty fists of a hot-headed bit trader wrapped around his neck. The men who make up the cast are daredevilish and eccentric. They ride motorcycles at suicidal speeds and hire kung fu masters to learn kina, an intricate martial art technique of physically incapacitating an opponent. Whoa. Kung fu kina. Just a touch from Kina practitioner's hand could result in your being locked and broken. There's a method of applying finge and manipulating the muscles, locking the joints, and Bixu attacking the pressure points, among others. Whoa. Okay, very interesting. This anecdote underscores the high stakes, aggressive environment of trading pits and sets the stage for Talib's lifelong obsession. Okay. Suicidal speeds hiring kung fu masters to learn China, let's say. Martial art for incapacitating opponents through joint locks. These behaviors mirror their trading style, bold, contrarian, and prepared for sudden threats. Talib in particular embodies this eccentricity with his divisive public persona, fierce intellect mixed with online abrasiveness while advocating for humility in the face of uncertainty. Another book review. Wow. Mega bestseller The Quants. Okay, so these are his previous books, The Quants and Dark Pools. Bragging rights start kicking in when investors do well or at least cling on, when markets are under stress, but rock star status is reserved for a clique who have made storm chasing in stocks and bonds into something between an art and a science, an extraordinarily lucrative one at that. They're the subject of Chaos Kings, a new book by Scott Patterson who casts an engaging, accessible light on what makes these oddball savants tick, how they make fortunes from disasters. Hmm. The star of the book is Nassim Taleb. Okay. Legendary investor who has also written a few best-selling books. Much of the book reads like an examination of life and times of the author and former trader Nassim Nicholas Taleb, a divisive character who combines a fierce intellect, genuinely useful insights, and a concern for the well-being of mankind with a frequently obnoxious public persona, especially online. Traditional asset managers building portfolio out of stocks and generally safer bonds in the hope they will balance each other out are doing savers a disservice by failing to deal with big ugly shocks. Some believe it is possible to predict disasters that mere mortals consider to be random. When is a black swan, a grey swan, or a dragon king? What about the false positives? Is expensive tail risk hedging actually worth the bother, or does it amount to buying elaborate lottery tickets? One person's logarithmic objective function to maximize geometric returns is another's bullshit. One person's logarithmic objective function to maximize geometric returns is another's bullshit. It's everybody's bullshit. Okay. Mark Spitznagel's lesson from the corn pits. Early in the career, he worked in Chicago's chaotic trading pits and learned a crucial lesson from a veteran corn trader. Love taking small losses to survive long term. This mindset became foundational to his hedge fund Universa, where he admits he's poor at forecasting markets but excels at positioning for disasters without predicting them. The story illustrates how black swan traders prioritize survival over constant wins. They prioritize survival over constant wins, accepting daily losses for massive gains during crisis. That makes sense because they are trained to take advantage of these massive crises, which means what are they doing day to day? They are kind of losing. They just want to survive because they are waiting for these massive black swan events to come, which might happen every once in a year, once in 2 years, once in 3 years. The story illustrates how black swan traders prioritize survival or constant wins, accepting daily losses for massive gains during crisis. Universal's explosive gains during the 2008 financial crisis and 2010 flash crash. Founded by Spitznagel in 2007, evolving from Empirica, co-founded by Taleb, Universa turned heads by delivering huge returns amid the 2008 meltdown, when global markets plummeted due to the subprime mortgage collapse. 2010 flash crash, where the Dow Jones dropped nearly 1,000 points in minutes. Universal's Black Swan Protection Protocol Fund. Universal's Black Swan Protection Protocol Fund profited handsomely. Black Swan Protection Protocol Fund. Whoa. These events highlight the fund's strategy of buying cheap insurance options that explode in value during volatility, growing Universa from zero to managing 16 billion by 23 despite initial struggles to attract investors. Chaos Kings. Did we open something? Yes. The 2020 COVID-19 pandemic windfall. In early 2020, as the coronavirus spread from China and triggered global lockdowns, Universa achieved a staggering 4,000% gain. 50 million bet ballooned into 3 billion in just 3 months, validating Spitznagel's approach amid widespread panic selling. The book details how this black swan event, unforeseen and devastating, exposed flaws in traditional portfolios, with many investors dumping stocks at lows and missing the rebound. Cushioned by the fund's protection, avoided knee-jerk reactions. Taleb's observation of Wall Street blow-ups inspiring the Black Swan. Oh right, he also has a book, The Black Swan. Over decades, Taleb watched self-proclaimed masters of the universe on Wall Street take excessive risk only to implode during unforeseen events like the 87 Black Monday crash when stocks fell 23% in a day or the September 11 attacks. These repeated failures fueled his 2007 bestseller The Black Swan, which argues that rare, high-impact events are more common than models predict. The book weaves this into a narrative of how Taleb and his peers shifted from conventional trading to storm-chasing strategies. Storm-chasing strategies. Storm-chasing. Challenges in building Empirica Universa. Despite the success, Taleb and Spitznagel faced significant hurdles in securing investments for Empirica and later Universa. Investors were skeptical of a strategy that loses money steadily in car markets, viewing it as an expensive insurance. Recounted persistence using data from past crises to convince backers, and how Universa's growth to a multi-billion-dollar operation proved that others wrong. Very interesting. Book review. Stories of their founders, their difficulties in getting investments in the fund, the way the fund managers used a range of convincing strategies to bring in investments. Starting from nothing in 2007, the universe and now boasts $16 billion by 23. Peels the story around all the events around the universe and is doing so. Also talks about Empirica. Nassim Taleb. Whoa, Mark Spitznagel looks like Ryan Gosling. Okay, sorry, Ryan Reynolds. Nassim Taleb has a very interesting story where he said to Brian Johnson that, hey, I really, really hate the way you over-optimize your entire life. And Brian Johnson replies that, hey, I still appreciate your work. Thank you. The book also gives a narrative around many other individuals. The author goes into a bit more depth in weaving these stories of the following people. Chaos Kings. Trader turned author, ran Empirica, helped Universa in getting investor money. Made money in 87 crash, showed dynamic hedging. Popular author, fooled by randomness, Black Swan, anti-fragile, skin in the game. Fierce intellect. That's what he's known for. Mark Spitznagel worked in CBOT, Empirica, 99 launch, made a ton of money in 2000. 2004 shutdown, Universa. 2007 launch, 4 billion by 2008, made 1 billion in flash crash, 2010. 16 billion as of 23, did fantastic in crashes. Launched Universa in 2007, learned the basics from Everett Clip. Okay. Belief, precautionary principle, Black Swan protection plan, panic now, panic early. Avoiding big crashes is crucial. Gray swans, predictable events, avoid ruin. You have to love to lose money and hate to win. You have to love to lose money and hate to win. And hate to win. MPT scrap. Yaner Bar Yam, expert in complexity theory, wrote a paper with Taleb warning COVID consequences. Brandon, broker for Empirica. Dragon Kings can be detected. Didier. Marcus, blockchain-based extreme event insurance. Robert, use risk management principles to come up with carbon tax. Mandelbrot, fractals and its application in finance. Daniel Kahneman, behavioral economist, Rupert Reed, environmentalist. Oh wow, they had Daniel Kahneman on there. It's also interesting. It seems like a lot of all of these authors that we know of, like Nassim Taleb. I had no idea he was a big trader. Okay. Same with Daniel Kahneman. It seems like he was a trader. Also, we have who's the finance man? Morgan Housel. Morgan Housel, the psychology of money guy. He's also a trader. He's also part of a VC fund, a private equity fund. I don't know which one. That's where they learn a lot about the world, learn a lot about the markets, and then come and write a book. All right. Let's search the web for the news on the fund, recent updates. Fund buys cheap out of the money options to protect against market crashes. Universal's Black Swan Protection Protocol Fund is a tail risk hedge fund strategy offered by Universal Investments LP designed to provide investors with protection against rare high impact market downturns. Black Swan events functions as a form of portfolio insurance aiming to mitigate catastrophic losses during financial crisis while accepting small, consistent costs in stable markets. The fund is not a single entity but operates through a series of limited partnerships and offshore vehicles, allowing for periodic fundraising and tailored implementation for clients. Founding and key figures. Universal Investments was founded by January 2007 by Mark Spitznagel, former trader, protege, okay, protege of Nassim Taleb. Unpredictable extreme event serves as the firm's principal scientific advisor. Wow. Headquartered in Miami, Florida, the firm evolved from an early collaboration with Spitznagel and Taleb called Empirica, grown to manage billions in assets by specializing in risk mitigation rather than traditional stock picking or market timing. Strategy and how it works. The BSPP is rooted in Black Swan theory, which posits that financial markets are prone to unforeseen shocks that traditional models underestimate. Unlike conventional hedge funds that seek steady returns, BSPP focuses on convexity, positioning portfolios to lose small amounts gradually, like paying insurance premiums in exchange for explosive gains during volatility spikes. Core mechanism. The fund primarily buys cheap out of the money put options on indices like the S&P 500 or individual stocks. Options are inexpensive during calm periods but skyrocket in value when markets crashes, as they give the right to sell assets at a higher strike price amid falling values. For example, during the 2008 crisis, Universal purchased puts on firms like Goldman Sachs and AIG, later selling them for massive profits. Portfolio integration. Clients typically allocate a small portion, 3 to 5% of their overall portfolio, to BSPP alongside traditional investments. This acts as a hedge, reducing drawdowns and enabling higher long-term compounding by avoiding panic selling in crisis. Universal emphasizes geometric mean returns, focusing on endpoint wealth over arithmetic averages, arguing it outperforms diversification with bonds or gold, which they claim lowers both risk and returns. Risk management. The strategy accepts frequent small losses, options expiring worthless in bull markets, but positions for asymmetric payoffs. It's not about predicting crashes, but being prepared for them, with a focus on cost effective protection. Risk management. Expiring worthless in bull markets, but positions for asymmetric payoffs. The 2008 financial crisis, returns exceeded 100%, growing assets to 6 billion by 2009. Stock market sell off, 20% return. Long-term track record. Oh wow. That's all. That's his review. The blog was a quick summary of the book Chaos Kings, written by Scott Patterson. And this is it. Takeaway. Like most of the previous Scott Patterson book, this book is a page turner. If you want to know the details about how a fund went from scratch to $16 billion fund by 23 without predicting any event in the market, without predicting any event in the market, you will find this book interesting. Quitting a life strategy. Okay. Wow, he has more on this book than Chaos Kings. All right, quitting. We're often afraid to try new things for many reasons. Trying out necessitates quitting the current line of thinking and action. The bigger the decision, the more likely we are gripped with fear and sunk cost fallacy. The book is a fantastic reminder of the importance of quitting in one's life as a survival strategy. Survival here might not be dramatic life and death situation, but more mundane life situations where we need to de-emphasize grit and give the deserved recognition to quitting, be it learning a hard mathematical theory, delivering a project, mastering an instrument, quitting, mindset hack, getting to know about various species in the world that intuitively follow quitting and survive. Humans, for various reasons, see quitting in a positive light, and books such as these are very useful to make us think differently. This is cool. RK's musings. If you spend a few minutes in thinking about why you might not quit something that you are already doing, it is not difficult to see that some of the reasons could be quitting might make you feel that you are a loser. In the explore versus exploit pattern of thinking, quitting means that you are forever exploring and you are not sticking to something that will enable you to exploit. Maybe you are short-sighted and you need to give yourself and pursue rather than quit. Quitting and going on a different path is fraught and uncertainty. Maybe your whole world will become topsy-turvy. World has drilled the importance of grit and persistence in your psyche. Maybe what is needed is more grit and resilience. Maybe you are weak and you should seek some guidance to develop grit. You're worried about what others will think once you quit and fail. You've already invested time and effort, and maybe you should stick to the activity even though it does not give you the expected outcome in the form and shape that you desire. Persevering finch is a doomed finch. If birds spend too long pecking away at a caltrop with an especially tough hide, they're in big trouble. The finches that know when to give up and move on to another potential food source have a better chance of survival because they are not depleting themselves in a quest with diminishing nutritional returns. Diminishing nutritional returns. For honeybee, the drive to survive, carries within drive to survive. Drive to Survive is such a good name. That's the F1 series. For a honeybee, the drive to survive carries within it the commitment to make sure there will be more honeybees. And so she defends her colony with reckless abandon. When a honeybee stings a potential predator, she dies because the sting eviscerates her. Honeybees make a calculation on the fly that decide if a predator is close enough to the colony to be a legitimate threat, and further, if the colony has enough reproductive potential at the point to warrant her ultimate sacrifice. If the moment meets those criteria, genuine peril, fertile colony, the honeybees are fierce fighters, happy to perish for the greater good. Wow. Make a calculation on the fly that decide if a predator is close enough to the colony to be a legitimate threat, and further, if the colony has enough reproductive potential at the point to warrant her ultimate sacrifice. If the moment meets those criteria, genuine peril, fertile colony, the honeybees are fierce fighters, happy to perish for the greater good. The point of the above and many more examples is to show quitting in a positive light. You quit so that you will have the time and the energy to go after something else. Something more promising. Quitting is a survival strategy. Birds, worms, insects instinctively quit for prioritizing benefits, survival over style. In a way, quitting means stopping one and starting something else. Quitting fundamentally means you are able to do something else. Despite this obvious outcome of quitting, we humans still see quitting in a bad light. Finches are that pecking behavior. Know when to give up. If at first you don't succeed, quit. Skilled survival mechanism. Quitting and moving on is the only effective strategy for many animals to get a meal. Every gesture must sync up with the goal of survival. Honeybee sting or duck decision. The neuroscience of nope, I'm done. Zebrafish swim against the tide. Radial astrocyte are activated when fish gives up. Radial astrocytes, neurons. Zebrafish. What's a zebrafish? Freshwater ray fin fish belonging to the family Danionidae of the order Cyprid. The order see sounds like a Game of Thrones thing. And native to South Asia, it's a popular aquarium fish frequently sold under the trade name zebra. Danio. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. Not so beautiful. Okay, okay. We were doing RK musings. The author talks about the various quitting scenes in the movies that have captured the imagination of all of us. In a way, these scenes appeal to many who might want to dramatically quit on something they are caught into. I'm sure everyone thinks has a few favorite scenes from the barrage of media scenes. One is exposed and fantasizes that she was the protagonist in the scene. The scenes in art, such as an opera, movie, theater, show, stickitivity, wow, as a way of success. Stickitivity, theater show, stickitivity. What is that? The protagonists keep doing one thing against all odds and succeed. However, in real life, it is usually the opposite. We have to quit something in order to begin something new. Jennifer Aniston quits her job. Various scenes in the movie dramatize quitting. Art invites identification. Many more scenes that dramatize grit perseverance. Peddling perseverance. Samuel Smiles, self-help guru, peddling grit. Hard work plus perseverance is good life. Heroic individualism is highlighted everywhere. Self-help books cast all our problems as personal. Failure, lack of willpower. Normal Vincent Peale, power of positive thinking. Peddling your thoughts as our destiny. Don't quit. Napoleon Hill. The author traces her current fix on perseverance grit to a few personalities whose books have permeated popular culture for years. Samuel Smiles from mid-10th century, Norman Vincent Peale, Napoleon Hill have, through their books, celebrated the notion that it is our thoughts that influence the outcome, and it is only through staying the course, persevering through hardships, does one succeed. Very appealing notion until it meets the reality of life. With failure is everywhere. It is unavoidable. How do you handle failure is the key. Start again, fail again, start again, fail again. It seems to be a mantra of most of successful entrepreneurs. However, do a random search on personal improvement will yield in hits that mostly talk about grit and perseverance and less about being flexible enough to quit often. Luck and letting go. Several anecdotal evidence of people who have quit and found it liberating. Things around us are always uncertain. We do not get to decide many external events that shape our lives. All we can do is to, when situation arises, quit and try something new. A large portion of our lives is beyond our control. We have no say over where we are born or to whom or on so many occasions which events happen to us and when. Risked his life to work with the French resistance during World War II. Once told an interviewer, there are no geniuses really, only what people make with what they are given, that and a confluence of circumstances. Hmm. There are no geniuses really, only what people make with what they are given, and that and a confluence of circumstances. Making a better world. The author makes a point that we often tend to attribute the broad inequalities in standard of living to individual choices that people make. By making the individual the focus of attention, our culture moves away from analyzing the systems, the governing bodies, the large components of a system that lie outside the individual's influence, that are the real cause of many afflictions of the world. Self improvement culture is disembodied. It is a disavowal of our physical vulnerability. One is always supposed to be overcoming one's bodily insufficiency. Self help pushes the idea of boundless capacity with no chinks in the armor. The COVID 19 virus reminded us all of what people who deal with a disability, their own or that of a loved one, have known all along. No one is exempt from the stark lottery of illness. People fall, they have to spend a year in bed, or they have a child with developmental disability. We need to do what self help doesn't do, to deal with the body in its frailty, not its capacity, the mind in its feebleness, not its robustness. Luck and letting go. World around is uncertain, be flexible and quit often. There are no geniuses, only what people make with what they are given. Maybe you are not starting enough and hence you are not quitting. Making a better world, self-help books makes us less compassionate. More self-help bashing in making us feel that we are responsible for the outcomes. The rest of the chapters contains hacks suggested by the author to aid quitting. Precision quitting is one where you start looking at quitting as not a binary win but more like a dial. It gives you joy and liberation instead of shame and guilt. You can quit the activity you are doing and then do something in a related field. You're doing a pivot, is what the modern jargon says. Darwin's example, where he stopped his experimentation, acknowledged that another person has published similar findings, pivoted to being a writer. Many serial entrepreneurs do this. Avoid sunk cost fallacy that accompanies any quitting decision. Unless one quits, one does not get another chance of winning. Quitting might make you feel guilty as you might be disappointing others. It is up to choose whether you want to disappoint yourself. Always think quit, do what, and start making transition plans before you actually quit. Cause I quit. Precision quitting. Quitting that gives you joy and satisfaction. Dial and not an on off switch. Darwin giving up experimentation to write. Your way to success, resisting forces, sunk cost fallacy, fear, pivot. Edison pioneer in quitting. True perseverance is strategic quitting. Get another chance at winning. Will disappoint others, disappoint yourself versus disappoint others. Social media makes you feel as though you have fixed identity. Raise the stakes on quitting. Quite quitting, better alternative to oversharing. Quit to what? Make peace with quitting. Whoa. Very interesting. Eight mathematical strategies to improve metacognition. Take a step back, draw the problem, find a new approach, reflect on why, simplify a conjecture, become a skeptic, try a smaller case. Valuing struggle. We should embrace or even seek our opportunities to do the work that pushes us to the edge of our understandings, as it is on that edge that the greatest knowledge can be discovered. It is where creativity is found and important discoveries can be made. When we venture out onto the edge of places where we are unsure, lack knowledge, or have uncertainty, that is where we achieve the greatest accomplishments. We don't achieve much in life by playing it safe or giving in to our inner negative voices and fears. Brain is much more plastic than most people can think. Work on a task a few minutes each day for 6 weeks can change the structure of the brain. Now imagine what you can accomplish in a year working on something a few minutes each day. Mathish. Learning to learn. Author cites a research study carried out by John Haiti on 300 million students that highlight metacognition as having the maximum effect size in the study of relationship between different approaches in education and student achievement. A person who has learned metacognitive strategies is likely to be inquisitive and curious. They are eager to learn and they appreciate diverse viewpoints. If they are stuck in a problem, they may circle back and think about what they know and need to know, or they may choose from other different strategies they have learned. Importantly, they enjoy the process of problem solving and learning. This complex combination of high level problem solving mindset and planning that occurs when we are metacognitive takes place in the anterior prefrontal cortex of our brains. When people learn to be metacognitive, they not only improve their problem solving, they also develop greater pro social behavior, become better communicators, develop more empathy, and learn greater executive control. Some people learn to engage in these different ways, invoking a complex combination of mindset and higher order thinking through their lives, and they are more successful people because of it. Learn to engage in these different ways, invoking a complex combination of mindset and higher order thinking through their lives. Improve their problem solving, they also develop greater pro social behavior, become better communicators, develop more empathy, and learn greater executive control. Valuing struggle. I came to know about Cuisinier rods that can be used as tactile way to teach addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Mathish. The ability to judge whether an answer to a calculation is reasonable may be the most valuable mathematical ability that any student, adult person can develop, yet most students are missing it. I'm not surprised, as mathematics learning worldwide focus on precision and accuracy, and estimation and ishness are neglected. Yeah, I used to find that really weird. In university, a lot of people would just like say ish, 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 and I used to find that really weird. I thought that was like very cringe. But that is kind of the way people are taught over here to kind of make estimations. And sometimes you don't know when you're around really smart people, and really smart people, and also just the way they are taught in their high school. They obviously, these are really smart people, and they are being taught in a certain way in their prestigious elite universities or high schools. So they have a different way. They have a different way of how they do things. Working memory, executive control, processing quantity information, visual spatial formats. Two of the brain pathways which focus on visuals are at the back of our heads when we encounter a problem in numbers and see a visual representation or a well-worded description. Connections are made between brain regions. Researchers have shown that students achieve more highly when they are given mathematical work that involves both numbers and visuals. Takeaway: mathematics curriculum is broken across many countries. Step into any math class and you will mostly see only a handful of students showing interest. Most of the students are then led to private tuition classes after school to tide over the inefficient learnings from the school. It's a systemic issue, and Joe Bowler offers practical strategies to change the math education so that it becomes more diverse, mathish, and application oriented. You will like this book if you wonder about what can be done as citizens, parents, teachers, so that we can impart effective math education to one and all. I am really curious about the eccentric. Tell me more. And let's see, what can we. Marcellus. This one. Okay. Plan your goals. Some believe it is possible to predict disasters that mere mortals consider to be random. When is a black swan or gray swan? Okay, we did that. This is it. Hmm. Okay. More on the eccentric lifestyles of black swan traders and chaos kings. Vividly humanizes them as larger than life figures whose personal quirks and adrenaline fueled hobbies mirror their high stakes contrarian approach to markets. These storm chasing edgelords of finance, as the New York Times storm chasing edgelords of finance, as the New York Times review aptly calls them, embody a philosophy of embracing uncertainty and risk, which extends far beyond trading desk into their everyday lives. Parallels between those of the New York Times right here. Okay. Portrayal draws parallel between the daredevil antics and the investment style, always prepared for the unexpected, thriving on chaos, and willing to endure discomfort for massive payoffs. This phrase directly references the thrill-seeking behavior of key figures like Spitznagel, who is depicted as channeling his pit trading intensity into extreme personal pursuits. Hardened by the volatile world of finance, seek out physical risks that echo the unpredictability of black swan events. Founder of Universal Investments is portrayed as a former Chicago pit trader whose early career involved dodging physical confrontations in the chaotic trading floors, experiences that toughened him. His motorcycle riding is uncasual, it's at breakneck paces that test limits, much like buying cheap put options that bleed value in car markets but explode during crashes. The book suggests this isn't mere hobbyism but a mindset. Just as they love taking small losses in trading, a lesson Spitznagel learned from veteran corn trader Everett Klepp, they embrace the daily grind of high risk activities for the rare, exhilarating rush. View life through a lens of asymmetry, small cost for potentially huge rewards or survival. Physical regimen, he's known for heavy deadlifting, often boasting about lifting over 400 pounds. Wait, what? What? Nassim Taleb. Okay, I didn't know this about Nassim Taleb. He actually lifted. Wow. Okay. Promoting barbell strategies and fitness, minimal but intense efforts for maximum anti fragility. China. A subset of Chinese martial arts focused on joint locks, pressure points, opponent immobilization, symbolizes the trader's obsession with control amid chaos. Patterson highlights how these financiers hire expert instructors not for casual self defense but to master techniques that require precision, patience, and the ability to exploit vulnerabilities suddenly. Particularly evocative for Taleb, whose personal public persona is combative and intellectual. The book portrays him as polymath with a hair trigger temper, engaging in online feuds, incapacitates opponents with sharp wit and evidence based takedowns. Reflects his philosophy from the Black Swan and anti fragile systems, or people should not just withstand stress but grow from it. Systems or people should not just withstand stress but grow from it. Spitznagel too is implied in his eccentricity as his background in the rough and tumble trading pits where physical altercations weren't common translates to seeking martial arts that emphasize leverage over brute force, mirroring Universal's strategy of using low cost options to gain outsized returns. Divisive online presence calling out fragilistas and economists he deems fools as multilingual erudition in ancient text and his avoidance of modern convenience like email for focus. Meanwhile, retreats to a 200-acre farm in Michigan, raising alpine goats and practicing sustainable living, where he sees, which he sees as a hedge against societal black swans like supply chain breakdowns. Patterson contrasts this with more conventional Wall Street types, emphasizing how these quirks fuel their success in an age of crisis marked by pandemics, climate risk, and geopolitical tensions. Metaphors for black swan trading, eccentric, resilient, and unapologetically bold. Power of the competing egos at play, turning finance into a gripping character study if you're interested in reading excerpts. Wow. 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 Okay. That's the stream. Thank you.